Hi, I'm Mrs. Cloutier, and I get to talk about when God shows up in people. I have been asked to focus on the prophets John and Isaiah. A prophet is a person who speaks for God. In the book of the prophet Isaiah, there are many promises about the coming of Jesus, which fit really nicely with the Christmas season that we're in right now. Here's one example of them from Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, found in my Breakthrough Bible. It says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The young woman, pregnant and about to bear a son, shall name him Emmanuel." These words point toward the birth of Jesus. We are all called to be prophet, priest, and king. And what that means is that it's our job and responsibility to share the good news of Jesus with others. So what I'm going to do now is invite you to think about the ways that you talk to other people about God. And I'd like you to pause your video for a moment and share either with your grown-up or your family some examples of the way that you speak of God. The prophets often gave warnings to those who were not following God's ways, but also shared messages of hope and peace. I'm going to ask you to take out your scroll, and on your scroll write down a message of hope or a message of peace that you would like to share. Thank you. Let's shift our conversation to John the Baptist and the story of the visitation, found in Luke chapter 1, verses 39 to 56, which is actually on page 1674 of your Breakthrough Bible. I'm going to read it to you. Please follow along. During those days, Mary set out and traveled to the hill country in haste to a town of Judah, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the infant leapt in her womb. And Elizabeth, filled with the Holy Spirit, cried out in a loud voice and said, "Most blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And how does this happen to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For at the moment the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the infant in my womb leapt for joy. Blessed are you who believed that what was spoken to you by the Lord would be fulfilled." So God showed up when John the Baptist leapt in his mother's womb, before he was even born, knowing that Mary was to be the mother of our Lord. In the visitation story, God showed up through John's actions. Here are some other examples of God showing up in the person, St. John. John quoted what the prophet Isaiah said. "I am the voice of one crying out in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord." And what John meant when he said this was that we should return to God. He was helping to prepare everyone for the birth of Jesus. He reminded them that praying, loving one another, and following God were extremely important. He also baptized many believers with water. John used an ordinary thing, water, to unite believers, but he said, "I am baptizing you with water, but one mightier than I is coming. I am not worthy to loosen the tongs on his sandals. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit." God showed up in the words and actions of the prophet John the Baptist. We've talked about how God is always present with us, and the ways that we are reminded of God showing up in the Bible through the examples of Isaiah and John. Now let's think of ways God has shown up in people we know. Your God moments. These are ordinary moments that, when thought about closely, reflect God's showing up in extraordinary ways. Maybe you had a friend who FaceTimed you or had a Google Meet with you and said something that filled your heart on a day that you were feeling kind of lonely. That could be a God moment for you. Maybe you had a soccer coach that encouraged you and filled you with courage and energy. Or maybe somebody in your family found a way to bring Christmas joy by finding a safe way to gather outdoors around a bonfire for Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. Think about how God has shown up in people for you, and take out your journal that looks like this and write down some of those God moments, the ways that God has shown up in people. Thank you for being with me today, sixth graders and your families, and I hope to see you in person real soon.